If you want to bring
Direct
that
over
mic, yeah, just put it like right there. As long as it's not on the other side of the.
Right there?
That should be good, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe like 1 inch.
Right there? Oh,
a little bit. Yeah, right there. It's about perfect.
All right, okay.
Cool. What's going on, everybody? This is Sam Heine checking in with another episode of Street Talk. Thanks for joining us today. Hope everybody had a great week. I'm sitting here in the backyard of a friend of mine, Travis Provencher, in an 1870s era shotgun style house that he found himself stumbling into. He did a really great job fixing it up. He's a real estate investor, a restorator, and a historical preservationist, amongst other things. And he really focuses in on the Smoketown neighborhood and doing things the right way. And you can just tell you really pay attention to the historic architecture and the nuances of when it was originally built. And one thing that kind of jumps out to me is, just walking through this house, in contrast to the shotgun houses just right across the street that are boarded up right now. Smoketown's very much in a transitionary period. That must have been quite an undertaking for you.
Yeah, we've been working on this house for almost 2 years now, so there's a lot to it. It's more than just a daily job. It's weekends and nights. It's all hands on deck all the time. So, but it's a labor of love for sure.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. What do you see? It's interesting to me because I'm being in real estate. I see a lot of this kind of stuff where people will snap up these properties. They'll throw vinyl everywhere and then they'll flip it for a higher dollar amount, line their pockets a little bit. What do you see? What's the value of the neighborhood and of the property in general, of doing it the right way and, really making sure to pay homage to these original structures?
Well, I think traditional materials, obviously there's a design element that goes in traditional materials, right? Mm-hmm. It's more aesthetically pleasing, and it takes more effort and energy to maintain and keep up with, but it lasts much longer. For instance, there's a shelf life on vinyl. Most folks don't realize it, but vinyl siding, you get 10 to 15 years out of vinyl siding, mm-hmm. Assuming that the house doesn't rot inside of it.
Yeah.
And I've been to houses where I'm looking at them and they've got vinyl siding over them. You can't see the underlying structural problems until you take that off, or in some cases the walls are completely rotten. Mm-hmm. 2x4 sheathing, siding underneath the vinyl is rotted out completely and the wall literally flaps in the wind.
Yeah.
And vinyl siding makes it look good for a short period of time, but you ultimately have to repair it.
Right.
Traditional materials are the way to go.
Yeah.
I've taken out vinyl windows in this house to put in wood windows.
Right.
In the original wood frames, but new sashes made locally by a local craftsman, creating local jobs with local materials that can easily be repaired, painted, reglazed. The glass comes from downtown at $10 a pane. It's so much easier to do the job right than to repair an inferior window or vinyl sided house. It just makes more sense.
Yeah. Fortunately, a lot of people don't really think that deep into it, that there's a whole, myriad of problems that could come 10 to 15 years down the road for the owner or the buyer, I guess, buying into this property. And you can tell walking through, it's just different energy, different ambiance.
It's the aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
And isn't that what we live about? I mean, it's art and architecture, right?
Right. It's inspiring.
That's what makes us happy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I can't imagine going through life without those two components, art and architecture.
Right.
And art could be anything. I mean, from good food to, paint and canvas, sculpture, landscape.
Yeah.
Architecture is in that same vein.
Yeah. I was going to say, it seems like in a big way, what you're doing. You're taking a blank canvas, which are these dilapidated homes, which I guess kind of brings me to my next question, angled directly into Smoketown. You're doing it a little bit in a different way. You're not going around to these different homeowners offering cash offers. You're taking shuttered up, dilapidated houses, and you're kind of transforming them when nobody, they've been sitting vacant maybe for a long time.
Yeah, and well, to answer that question, there's a two-prong approach really. Is I don't want to pay for somebody's crappy renovation.
Yeah.
And so I see a Home Depot special kitchen or bathroom, and I immediately think, I don't know what's underneath that. I immediately want to tear it out to make sure that the bones and structure are solid.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't want to pay for somebody's crappy renovation. Is there insulation in the walls? Most of the time there's not.
Yeah.
A lot of these house flippers just slap up some new drywall on top of the existing drywall or plaster.
Yeah.
And they just go with it. So
Yeah.
there's no insulation in the walls, and you don't realize that until after you've bought it or in the purchase of buying it.
Yeah.
Till you get that energy bill, your first utility bill, and it's $300 for a winter month.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem here.
Right.
I know what I put into it,
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't pay for somebody's crappy renovation. The other side too is that I like Smoketown. I like the culture of Smoketown. I like the diversity. I like, I like the old folks that I run into on my walks, and so I don't want to gentrify. And gentrify has some bad terminology. Gentrify, I guess, really defined. It's just changing.
Right.
And inevitably everything's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
But how it changes is what you have to keep in mind. I don't kick anybody out, and I look at it like this is their investment. Somebody has invested money in this house for 50, 60, 70 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden there's value in this neighborhood. And some folks are desperate to get out now that they can, right? And they want to move to a more stable, safer neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think we've got a stable, safe neighborhood.
Yeah.
I just want to take these homes that are vacant and abandoned and make them desirable, bring them back online.
Yeah.
And tearing them down to me isn't an option.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, we were having a conversation about this earlier, but a lot of people, St. Matthews and the Highlands are great areas, and they're stable neighborhoods, and a lot of people want to raise their children there. But I think there's a lot of value just kind of going back to what you were saying about walking down the street and seeing, a variety of people.
It's new urbanism, right?
Urbanism, and you see the old, even though a lot of them are kind of crumbling. The industrial side of Smoketown, there's a residential side meets commercial side. It's really a mixture of a lot of different structures and people. And that's always something to me that's very inspiring, especially being right on the fringe of turning into something, revived and even more beautiful. Where do you see Smoketown in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I see it just a more dolled up version of itself, right? Character remains. You got great restaurants coming in. Paristown Point's close. East Broadway's going to develop. You're a few blocks from the hospitals in Nulu, a few blocks from the Highlands. Shelby Park is just a couple blocks away. Mm-hmm. We have the amenities, right? And it's urban living. It's just, how we transition to that next phase is the question. I mean, are we going to do it in a way that brings long-term value to this neighborhood, or is it going to be just temporary cosmetic? And the next wave of renovation, we have to deal with the problems that are being covered up by inferior construction practices and materials. Or are we going to solve that problem this time, right? And solving it today is the cheapest. Cheapest long-term solution.
Than having to go back, reverse what you did, and then do it over.
Absolutely. And you see that whenever you go on these open houses, see these new homes that are coming online, and they're pretty. Mm-hmm. But again, it's just cosmetic, right? Let's fix the problem.
It's like cleaning your kitchen counters and wetting a paper towel and wiping it off after like cutting chicken up instead of like pulling out the spray, like the cleaning spray, and actually cleaning off.
I'll one up you. It's like just covering it with a piece of plastic.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
I mean, it's still dirty underneath.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still inferior.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you touch the plastic, technically, I guess you don't get the germs, but it's still under there.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
growing mold and everything like that.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that compelled me to reach out and kind of have this conversation is just the historical restoration, but just doing things the right way. And a lot of people find themselves, whenever they're buying a house or selling a house, and they have these, do-it-yourself kind of projects, or maybe they'll bring somebody in and they're faced with these problems of this is cheaper than this, but this is probably the right way to do it. What I guess a couple of different questions. First being, what advice would you give to them with that kind of issue? I guess it kind of varies if they have a historical piece of property or if it's just, a house that was built in the 70s or something like that.
Well, for sure, but I think first it's economics, right? We renovate, and our budget determines how we renovate. Labor costs are the vast majority of construction, and those labor costs, whether I put on crappy material like vinyl siding or vinyl windows, is the same as if I put on good materials. The only difference is, what does the material cost?
Right.
And in time. A lot of folks, they'll flip and they don't want to paint, or it's not conducive to paint in cold months, so they'll slap up vinyl siding because it's just easy.
Yeah.
But easy is not necessarily better.
Right.
So I think intrinsically, there's more value in doing the job right. It looks better to the eye. It's more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that investors should start to think about they're leaving money on the table.
Right.
By doing it right, you actually create a better product. And it's more desirable.
You're adding value to the neighborhood and the property
and that
itself.
property. Yeah. And it prays higher.
Yeah.
And I think initially folks are looking at what's the cheapest I can get it flipped and sold, instead of doing the property a favor and spending more time and effort to make it right, and demand a higher price. Something, but you'll have folks fighting over it, right?
Right.
A good project is intrinsically more attractive and has more value than a project that just has, it's just so-so. I can fix that problem later.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But
yeah, and that's sort of it seems like a common issue you run into is if somebody's fixing up to sell, they might take the cheaper route because they're cashing out.
Exactly.
But if they're coming in to buy, they want to put in the time and the effort.
Yeah, and I look at it, Smoketown, for me, I have some personal reasons. My great-grandparents, my grandfather lived in this neighborhood turn of the century. Mm-hmm. This is home for me, right?
Yeah.
I chose this neighborhood. This was a neighborhood I chose, not one I was stuck with.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look at it like, if I have the resources to choose a neighborhood, where would I want to be? And I've chosen this as my home. I think that's a statement. I could live in the East End. I choose not to. I choose to live here because it's convenient for me.
Yeah.
It's near every place I want to be. Mm-hmm. It beckons the lifestyle I want to live.
Yeah.
It puts me in the path of folks that I find enrich my life, right?
Right.
And so, my neighbors, that's what it's about to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Now there's certainly some negatives, but this isn't about the negatives, right? Yeah. This is about what Smoketown has to offer, mm-hmm. and we have a lot.
And there's also, I guess it helps that there's an opportunity for someone that's looking for a home or they're looking for a neighborhood to invest in. There's a lot of upside and there's risk that goes with any kind of investment, but they could potentially come in and fix the property up in the right way and make their money back in 5 to 10 years.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's obviously one of the most affordable neighborhoods on the east side of town.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it'll always be that way.
Yeah.
Property values seem to be going up rather rapidly, but eventually they'll equalize, but at this point, there's certainly a bargain for somebody who wants to create a home, that they can be proud of for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah, really cool, man. A lot of really cool things going on. It's inspiring what you did with your house and what you're doing around the area with the other properties you're fixing up as well. So, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time here on Street Talk. Have a good rest of the day.